Turning the vision into a mission. This is the Global Mission of Peace with the GoldFish Report on October 23rd, 2015. I am Radagast, and I am joined by Louisa, our media outreach.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Sherry B. and a Right to Know.
Hello. Great to spend this time with you.
Steve D., our European correspondent. Hello, Steve.
Hi there. Hi from Germany.
Our special guest, Kev Baker. Hello, Kev.
Great to be back again. Big hi from Scotland.
And our friend and the voice of the dragon, the ambassador of the dragon family. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Kev, back to your new family here. And today we wanted to speak about CERN. And to be honest with you, I have crossed the subject a few times, and I know what's been going on in other parts of the world in the same type of things. But I would like to see what you have, Kev, to talk about CERN today. And we can also talk some other subjects that is luring with the refugee crisis. And I want to bring up some other interesting suggestions that might shock some people, but it's a suggestions that I would like to bring forward. And also at the same time, we want to see what we can discuss about some other, homicidal situation going on here in Europe, also in relation to the build up of a race war that the cabal likes to start here in Europe. So please, Kev, you could start talking about the CERN situation.
No problem. And right now it's CERN. This is basically the lull before the storm, because right now this machine is currently going through an upgrade and a preparation mode. Because just to give you a rundown on how the events are going to unfold at CERN over the next couple of weeks, we've got the scrubbing of the main ring until November the 3rd. And then after November the 3rd, they go into a machine development phase. Now, it's key to understand, up until this point, they've been colliding protons. Now, to put it into an understandable kind of way for people to get, if you think of an old Scalextric or a racetrack, what they've been doing so far is taking cars and smashing cars together. Now, come the 13th of November, they're going to be swapping the cars for bigger trucks. Now, the reason they do this, they're swapping the protons for the lead, is because they're firing these protons at close to the speed of light as it is. They are going as fast as they can. Now, these collisions that they've been recording and looking for the God particle and stuff like that, well, it's told them that there's some math left over, and that's unexplained particles. Now, to discover what these particles are, now remember, this is the official line coming from the physicists. They have to get bigger explosions. So come the 16th of November, we're going to be having PB to PB explosions. Now, in the periodic table, that's lead. So if you look on the CERN website and you hear about PB collisions, it means they have moved up to the heavier ions of lead. Now, when they collide, they're going to actually create a combined force of 14 tera-electron volts. Now, 1 tera-electron volt is 1 trillion volts. Now, this kind of energy hasn't been seen anywhere on Earth before, ever since, even in the universe, since the Big Bang time. And they're hoping to control that power in these rings underground at Geneva. Now, there's a lot of people are saying that there's a danger we'll open up black holes and it could be catastrophic. And it really could. And that's not so far out of the realms of possibility, because even the top physicists in the world are coming out and saying that basically the detection of mini black holes called strangelets will prove the existence of other dimensions. Now, this is where we can start going a bit more metaphysical and a bit more occult, because there's somebody that I've really formed a good relationship with, and that's Anthony Patch. Now, he's been researching the physics and the metaphysics behind CERN for over 10 years now. And he explains that when we talk about this interdimensional aspect of things, the dark occultists, the dark masters and the cabal that we face, Well, they do the bidding of interdimensional beings that lay on another plane. Now, it might seem totally outrageous to anyone listening to this, but we have to get into the mindset of the cabal. And they honestly do believe that there are things on this other dimension. Now, let's take this a step further, because if they do create a connection to this other dimension, it only has to be for a matter of split seconds, because time does not exist in the other plane. So once the connection's been made, or the veil has been pierced, that connection will always remain there on that side. So the time aspect over here, it doesn't matter if they say it's only milliseconds that they will create this for, because then they've got the adiabatic quantum computer. Now, I know this is going a bit far and a bit far out there, but this quantum computer, it's a bit like CERN. Because it's quantum, the bits are both in this dimension and the other dimension where CERN is actually trying to pierce a hole to. Now, there's a Dr. Craig Ventnor, and he made a presentation to NASA. And basically, this is the guy that used CERN to crack the human genome. Well, now he's come up with a way of creating synthetic life using 4 bottles of chemicals. And these are the 4 basic proteins that we find in amino acids in our DNA. So if we take that a step further, guys, and it probably is going to the realms of the woo-woo here, but we're literally living in a world now where we've got the capability to build a host synthetic body for whatever interdimensional beings that maybe can't exist here on this plane just now. However, we've actually got the potential to create a host for them to come through if they open this dark rift. Now, that's the worst case metaphysical explanation of what is going on there. Will they do it? I don't think so. I think there's some power, be it God, whatever you want to call it, something is going to doom them to failure. That is my hope. However, at the same time, CERN can be good and bad. I was explaining to Lou before the show that it actually, some of the proton beam therapy that they've been able to develop because of particle accelerators. I mean, this is doing away with things like chemotherapy. This will target a cancer as opposed to just flooding your body and overwhelming your full system. And we had a case in the UK where a family were even going to get put into jail because they dared to take their child abroad for proton beam therapy. Now, that young lad is now alive and well because it targeted a very individual spot in his brain, as opposed to the chemotherapy that would have targeted everywhere. Now, that's one of the good things coming from CERN. But of course, we're living in a world run by psychopaths. And here's the problem, because it was Steve, he hit the nail on the head. Everything will be weaponized. And at places like CERN, there's a good realistic chance they could create antimatter. Now, if you think back over the ages, wars used to be fought with sticks and stones and then bows and arrows, and then something like the cannon came along. And the people who had the cannon, well, that was the game changer. They ruled. Well, whoever gets antimatter first, theoretically, that will be the game changer for them. They would automatically become the superpower. Now, I'm sure you've probably got a lot of questions. Hopefully, I can answer them for you. But that's a basic rundown of what's going to be happening. And the key date to note is the 16th to the 19th of November. And that's going to be the lead getting injected. And then from the 20th of November until the 13th of December, that is the collision period. So watch out for earthquakes during that time. Watch out for more strange anomalies, floating cities in the sky. Although I do feel some of that could be Project Bluebeam, but I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But Lou, everyone else, if you've got any questions, I hope that made sense. I hope I didn't go too far.
It did, Kev. No. You did a great job really laying that out for us and giving us, I really appreciate that timeline as well. And the timelines are important because, as you know, recently Simon Parkes had organized a group of people who did meditation during the last time that CERN had been set up to run. And of course, there was a successful interruption of that, and it did not function the way it was intended to. But there are so many questions. I know everybody has questions, and I'm gonna go first because we're talking, and this is really scary because they open up these other dimensions. We don't know what happened over in China the other day with that floating city. Is this related to that? And how can we we just don't want them to bring their army in. Is that what they want to do, so that they can just take over and take the planet and just...
Basically, yeah. I mean, we hear a lot of the time how they are members of the Saturnalian Brotherhood. We see the Saturnalian kind of symbology in our courts with the black robes, the police, everything else. Now, on a metaphysical level, again, it's said that the fallen angels may well have been cast there, and they're in some kind of interdimensional prison. Well, get this, guys, because if you can go and check this out on the net, Saturn is now starting to act strangely. And Tony Patch told us all those months ago, right up until now, that basically our model of the space and the universe is flawed. We tend to think of things in the Newtonian and Einstein kind of way. We've got gravity and black holes and all these things in space. However, there's another theory called the electric universe. Now, this is where Tony Patch says they try to confuse us at CERN. They want us to look into all the quantum strangeness because that is pure Newtonian and Einstein science. It comes from that neck of the woods. However, if it is an electric universe and that opens up free energy and everything else, then what we would see happening is a plasma connection from CERN up to Saturn. Now, if people want to Google the Norway spiral, I'm sure you guys have all seen that, but that's the kind of thing that they want to actually create. Now, via this portal, like you say, Lou, they do want to bring an interdimensional army. And this is the problem, because everything being vibration, I believe these dimensions are separated only by a matter of hertz. It's all frequency. They obviously, for some reason, cannot function at our frequency. But then when we factor in synthetic life and the production of synthetic DNA, well, they can literally create an army of hosts on this side. And they have the potential to take digital DNA and then reproduce it as synthetic life.
Kev, are you saying that they're trying to hijack the energy on the planet? They're trying to harvest it and basically create a new matrix with Saturn?
Well, they could be, yes. They could well be trying to tie in to the ancient ley system that is around the planet, because under Lake Geneva, we've got 24 ley lines that converge there. Now, if you think, if this system does start pumping back into the automatic or the natural energy system of the Earth, something that scientists say may well be happening, and we can point to the Schumann resonance going up right now. Well, what if they are trying to raise the frequency of the planet to something almost more akin to the beings they're bringing here? And if you think about it this way, guys, when you're tuning a radio station, you'll be on one radio station and it sounds brilliant, really, really brilliant. And then maybe you're driving along and all of a sudden it'll start fading in and out. And you hear another voice. Oh, I'm hearing my voice there. And then you hear another voice coming through in the background, and that other voice will get stronger. And before you know it, you're on that new frequency. Maybe that's what's happening just now. Maybe that's why we're seeing cities floating in the sky. The closer our frequency gets to the next dimensions, maybe we will see bleed through. But that's all speculation on my part.
Right, and we have shared... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ambassador.
Yes, I want to state something here, because it's quite interesting when you look at the time frame of these things and being done and so on. When you're talking about finding a host and so on, now since we have a world with, cameras everywhere, I mean, we have seen how, spirits basically is jumping into human beings and, basically possess them and kills them and then move further into another place. We've seen, like it says also, like in the scriptures, it states that in the end times it should be like the time of Noah. And at the time of Noah, we had all these strange entities. Now, many things that has been confused in religious matters is that they are saying that the fallen angels. Okay, now in reality, angels do not fall. Okay, this is again a deception. Okay, and these people in question are what we call, like the nobles. If you look at the Torah, they are called the nobles. Okay, and when you look at this this particular entities, that is the so-called nobles. Okay, they are, which is later on been calling in the Bible the fallen angels. Okay, but the most important thing is this, that if you look at the time frame of things, a certain particular entity which probably has been possessing a lot of people in the past, okay, which people are calling the Antichrist. This particular entity has been possessing a lot of people, and probably including the person that wrote the Bible and created Christianity. And he has been coming away many times through the centuries, returning. And now maybe what they're trying to do is bring this particular entity into our room in a physical form. Okay, and also what people doesn't realize many times is that we're talking about the jinns. Okay, and not it's this spiritual beings. Okay, they are basically coexisting with us every day in an alternative universe, and they have their own cities, they have their own things. So when you see the cities and the skies of China, this city in the skies there, the jinns might live there. This might be a dimension that coexist on our universe without us seeing it, without us being targeted with it, and that's their particular place of living. And now what they're trying to do is for us to basically to be able to open the veil between these different dimensions, and basically being allowed to communicate or bring things through this thing. And this thing has actually happened in the past history, as I learned from the elders. Has already happened once before. Okay, and after that we had the Atlantis situation when the world was in rupture, and we had the floods, and we had all these different type of things. We even had nuclear war on the planet before. It is evidence for that. And I think that what's happening here is that each time the world is trying to play God or trying to go against God's ways, things can happen. So yes, we have to be prepared. I know that some people have calculated the physical return of that Antichrist around 2017, and we're not that very far away from it. So we might be in a time when the people that created religion was, basically wants to bring these entities back in and to rule us in a physical form. And and they of course have support in all religions and all supports, because they have masqueraded themselves in all societies, okay, in all religions, in all government offices. So this is quite interesting thing, and so we just have to keep a close eye on it. But this is a part of what I consider the 555 taking the 666. So we are prepared.
Well, thanks, Mr. Ambassador. And, I was screen sharing this article that was in RT today, which was talking about just what you're saying, just what you're talking about in Papua New Guinea, where they're claiming that a woman who was basically possessed, and because she apparently suspected of being witches who have removed and eaten a man's heart, this is macabre, causing him to be gravely ill or die. So they're claiming that she's demon-possessed. They're saying that they were practicing witchcraft or sorcery of some kind, and that's pretty serious. So it looks like they're definitely possessing people if this is the case, and this is just exactly what you're talking about. And I know that we want to go to other questions. So Sherry, did you have a question for Kev?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure if our listeners might be aware, but CERN stands for Conseil Européen pour la Recherche Nucléaire, which is also, which is European Council for Nuclear Research. And it was a provisional council that was organized in the early 1950s with backing from the United Nations, and whose task was to plan the construction of a multinational research facility that was dedicated to study the advancement of nuclear physics. But then that was destroyed, and in September of 1954, and then after that was dissolved, CERN came about. And coincidentally, the same year, 4 months to the day after, the Bilderberg Organization was conceived. So whether that be a coincidence or not, but of course both organizations enjoy diplomatic immunity. So, you know, there might be some correlation there between those two organizations. Now, I know there are a couple of theories of what CERN is, or the collider, the super collider. And I know we're going to talk about one of those today, which is the Fata Morgana, or the blue beam theory that Kev can talk about. But I also wanted to point out that where CERN is, in Geneva, in any event, they have a statue outside, which is of Lord Shiva. Now, Lord Shiva is the goddess, she's the destroyer, the transformer. And so there's all these kind of symbols. They have also written inside of CERN in Geneva old ancient writings, Aramaic and other writings. There were some students who were visiting there from Spain, and I don't know if they snuck the pictures or what, but they took some pictures of the wall and they saw these old ancient writings. Now, additionally, in the recent past, they did a film called Symmetry. They shot a film there, and it's like an occult film. And coincidentally, the main character is Lucas, which is the bringer of light, also known as Lucifer. Not only was it the name of the main character, but it was really the name of the actor who played the part. But I saw a little trailer from the film, and it was pretty bizarre. It was there were a lot of occult symbols in this film. And I would just say that it's very concerning whenever you have something that is in such secret and trying to create things at this level. It's way more dangerous potentially than our hydrogen bomb, which was a transformation in the universe. And I just have to say it is quite concerning. I'd like to definitely hear what Kev has to say about the different theories, especially the blue beam theory.
Yeah. Sherry. Now, this is the natural phenomenon that the boffins are saying explains the floating cities that appeared over China twice, and even now in the UK, we've had a floating city appear over Hastings. Now, because I've been covering this information for some time, this actually happened back in 2011 as well. Now, CERN was up and running in 2011. Do I think CERN might have something to do with this? Possibly, just possibly. However, it could also have something to do with Project Bluebeam. And we've got people like Ray Kurzweil. He hasn't attended a conference live in the past couple of years. What he does is he goes into a special room in his house, and he has got all the equipment to holographically project himself into auditoriums, and by all intents purposes, he appears there. We can go to rock concerts and we see people like the dead Tupac Shakur, living and breathing almost. Now, this Project Bluebeam, what would it be used for? Well, somewhere like China is quite interesting, and possibly the ambassador might be able to speak to this, because over in Christian countries and in the West, maybe they might try and project something like, I don't know, the picture of Jesus on the cross or some godly character in the world, but projecting something ghostly and otherworldly as opposed to a religious figure in China, I feel it might even be to gain some kind of public response, some kind of reaction. And that did take China by storm, because we even seen the mainstream covering it because people were really, really interested in this. Whereas if they do Bluebeam in this country, I expect they'll probably put the figure of Christ up there, or maybe some alien invasion, all in an attempt for us to fall to our knees beg the governments of the world for help, and then they ride in like the white knights and say, there you go, global government.
That's it, Kev. Isn't that the problem, reaction, solution paradigm that they have established? Isn't that what that's about?
I call it crisis governance. They can't govern anyone without a crisis on the go. It's how they change opinion. It's how they get new policies through. It's how they work. They cannot operate under good, optimum conditions. The bigger the crisis, the more they get done. They thrive in it.
Exactly. Steve, do you have a question or a comment that you want to make for?
Well, I just find it very interesting. I'd just like to point out to the audience again that yes, we mustn't forget that also the Nazis in World War II, at the highest level, they were occultists. They used symbolism. They used the spirit world basically to fight their war. And I think when I was in Geneva, I went to the front of CERN. I couldn't get inside. I couldn't get to the museum because it was shut. But Shiva is out the front, and she is the destroyer. She's not just destroying particles, but who knows what they want to destroy. But I'd also like to point out that yes, for those who are listening that may not believe that there is a spirit world, I can certainly confirm it from my own experience. I've lived in several haunted houses. I've had a close member of my family was possessed. That may sound incredible to some people, but he went to a holy man to get this demon taken out of him, because we lived over an Aboriginal burial ground. We didn't know it at the time. And it was cursed, and the spirit went into him, and his personality changed completely. And so my father was very skeptical of this holy man, and he asked the holy man questions. And he said, okay, if you can leave your body, what does my house look like? What's my wife doing? He described everything perfectly. So my father, being a medical man, said, okay, all right, do what you need to do. He did the ceremonies. He was exorcised. The demon was gone. He explained it. So the spirit world is a real thing. And this CERN, whatever you said is going on, they want to, Kev, you said they wanted to create a wormhole. And if they want to create a portal in order to bring in their army, basically, in order to take us over. So this is a very serious thing. And I think if we can organize something to stop this, I think, with intention or prayer or meditation or whatever, I think we should do it. It's important.
Definitely,
Thanks,
Steve. And Shiva is a very interesting character. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's quite interesting. I found it very, very weird as well that Shiva was in the grounds. And then we look at the logo, we see the 666. But Shiva, it is very, very synonymous with the destroyer of worlds, but also the creator as well. For destruction comes creation as well. And when they're saying that they're creating mini black holes and almost reproducing the Big Bang, Steve, with them being both destroyers of particles and then creators as well, this is a bit way out there, but could this be how even our universe came into being? Were we the result of some particle collision in a tube somewhere?
Well, the thing is, we're playing with fire. We're like children playing with matches. And so the thing is, we could burn the whole house down and we wouldn't even know it. And why should we allow these people to do this when we're not actually told what's going on? It should be addressed.
And here's the flip side before I go to Rad and get Rad's question, but we were talking before, and we spoke to people like Randy Kramer about the secret space program, and I wonder how far down the roads in reality at DARPA and all the other occulted agencies this particle acceleration goes. Possibly they've miniaturized it by now. Look at Ghostbusters, got the particle accelerator packs on. Sounds a bit out there, but bear with me on this, because if we've mastered interstellar travel, there's a good chance we've already gone down this road. And we survived these big bangs when they were trying them out the first times. And now what we're watching is the public rollout of this technology. That's just one way of looking at it, but particle acceleration and space travel definitely go hand in hand. But I was talking to you before about this Chinese one that may be getting commissioned. And just to read you a small quote here, it says, the discovery of the Higgs boson 2 years ago was seen as the biggest scientific breakthrough in human history, fundamentally changing the way we understand our universe and how it was originated and its future. But China's particle accelerator promises to go a step further in unlocking the mysteries of before the universe. It will be able to recreate inside the accelerator the hyper energy conditions that existed at the moment of the Big Bang, when the building blocks of the universe were formed. This will help physicists explore the origins of matter, energy, and explore the phenomena of time and space. Now they're talking about exploring time and space. And it goes on here to say a preliminary conceptual design for this cutting-edge particle physics laboratory is now almost complete. China is 4 years ahead of the European competition, CERN, who also wants to build the only other known super collider in the world. The United States gave up on its plans due to the high investment needed, but even China's project, if all goes according to plan, will be completed by 2045. And they're talking about exploring time and space, guys.
Also, one important thing we have to pay attention to, because it's a lot of prophecies. Now we're not talking about Christian and Jewish prophecies here now, and Muslim prophecies. We leave the Abrahamic religions and go back to what Kev was talking about in the Asian world. Okay, we have entities that are standing ready to be actually possessed. Okay, and this is the clave man that is standing ready in China to be possessed and be awakened at the end times. And so basically, to blow the horn at that place and the pyramid and all things. So the emperors of China has always wanted to control these things. And so, and you can see that from the one who actually created this, the pyramid there where he's lying, all the Karakorum soldiers that are standing ready to be awakened as clay figures. And, and I think that what's happening here is that I think that some of these people wants to come back. And they want to open the wormhole. And also, as we know, is that, supposedly, the ancestries are coming from heaven. The dragons, they're coming from heaven. And you, like you say, you see the cities in heaven. This is the opening again for the, from the where we come from, basically to be able to return back. Okay, and so so it's very interesting what's going on. But I will have a different little opinion than maybe that many people have. Okay, is that in this particular thing, I am not traumatized over this things that's happening. Okay, because in reality, I leave it up to the creator. Okay, now what we should do is that we need to address it in a proper way. You understand? And this is basically what I'm trying to see here. That's why I asked Kev, because I have not studied these things too much, this thing with CERN. But it's important to see how can we, as humanity, react on these people playing gods, because this is what is the problem here. I think that it's people trying to pretend to play God, and I don't know what they can do. Yeah,
I think Simon Parkes gave us the best hint as to what we can do. This mass meditation, to me, appears to be the only real palpable response we can take part in. We can shout to the rooftops as long as we want, but this meditation, and I'm sure you guys can speak about that, all been a part of this before, this seems to be the perfect counter to that. We've seen that this meditation works throughout the world, guys. We've seen crime rates lowered. We've even seen them switching off traffic lights in cities, and then meditation's coming along, and everything goes well. It's crazy how this works. I can't explain it, but again, this taps into the multi-dimensional reality that we do live, and we know so little about.
Well, Kev, there's lots of evidence to support the effects of mass meditation. And when we did that meditation with Simon, you can see that because of my research and work I've done with Simon, I did take part in that. It's hard to know really if that was the effect, if that was the cause of that malfunction of the CERN. But it's, we like to think that there was definitely an impact in that. But it does give evidence to the theory that we're co-creators. And if we're co-creators, then we can have this effect, that no matter what nefarious plans that the dark has for us, that as co-creators we can overcome that, and mass meditation might be one of those ways. Let me go to Radagast, because I know he's been waiting for a question or a comment. Radagast?
Yes, hello, thank you. It's interesting, Simon Parkes comes into play again, because I tend to watch the videos that he makes, and he was speaking about CERN, and he said something that really caught my attention, and that was that they were engineers. I mean, obviously, the people who want to do the diabolical things or strange things are not the actual engineers. They're the conceivers who bring the engineers together. And Simon hinted that there were engineers on this project who know that this is a pretty unholy thing that they're doing. And so they make little mistakes in what they're doing, so that they basically sabotage the collider. And Simon pointed out that when that happened a lot with the Nazis, they were using slave labor. In this case, there was another kind of disgruntled worker. And that's why a lot of Nazi things blew up during testing and whatever, because the slave labor was sabotaging their efforts. And as the ambassador said, this is in the Creator's hands. And as I like to say, the world is in God's hands, and God's hands are on the end of all our arms. And I believe that some of those hands that are part of the engineers are actually sabotaging CERN at a very subtle level, but at subtle enough where it can't do what it's supposed to do. And I really feel that our hope, and I think the meditations contribute greatly to it, but when you have people actually sticking their fingers in there and messing with the circuitry a little bit, I think we're working the inside and the outside. I think that we have a lot of hope because of our hearts and because the Creator is manifesting through us in a number of ways. That I think that the really scary part of CERN is not something I'm particularly concerned about. I'm aware of its potential. I don't think its potential will be realized for the four stated reasons.
And you know, Rad, I could probably back you up on this, because back in 2012 we had two theoretical physicists coming out and talking about time travelers from the future coming back to scupper the plans. Now, for me, that is perfect cover for what you're talking about. A couple of present time physicists who know exactly what they're playing at in there. Stephen Hawking has warned them what they're doing. Now, these guys all look up to Stephen Hawking like some kind of god figure, or however wrong that is. But what I'm saying is they know the potential dangers, and I do believe there are white hats in there. And along with the meditation to keep them safe as well, fingers crossed, all being well, we'll be okay.
Yeah, Kevin, you know what, Rad, you were right on, as you usually are, brother, because you are right in line with what Cobra has been predicting, and Cobra has said in his messages, for people who are familiar with Cobra, that there are white hats in there and it isn't going to succeed. And by the way, we will be having a very special show with Cobra coming up soon, and so I hope our viewers will stay tuned for that. And I think Sherry has a question next.
I just want to state something very importantly here when it comes to praying. Okay, now you have people. I had this argument many times, and the argument has been that you have to pray in the name of Jesus, or you have to pray in the name of that, or and whatever, and it has to be done in this way, otherwise it doesn't go. And when you go back and then you look at the situation and you see that the name of Jesus is not even the name of the person that they are claiming that they want to refer to. So the main important thing here is that his name was Yeshua or Issa. And so basically the most important thing is in what is inside the heart of a person. I believe that every religion, doesn't matter which religion you claim to belong to, if you pray with the right intention, the Creator will listen to your to your prayers. It doesn't matter which religion you belong to. And so I think it's a very, very important that you are bringing out your attention to the Creator. I feel also, to be honest with you, that something is happening on this planet as we're speaking, and this is something that I wanted to talk about, is that I see the frequencies of aggression going higher. I see the random killings everywhere going higher. I see, a lot of things like sinkholes increasing, earthquakes, natural catastrophes. I see also a unwill from certain governments to deal with such things. It's almost like it looks like they have been giving up. And when I see that, I wonder that what is the real intention? Because sometimes, if we have an immediate danger for humanity, they would not tell us. Okay? And so, we don't know if these people there in CERN is somehow thinking that they are trying to save humanity by what they're doing. Okay? So this is also something that you need to take into consideration. A sense that, it's very, very important that we are looking to what is the reality and what we can do to change this reality into something positive. And that's basically by prayer. Okay? To whoever it is.
Okay, we're going to Sherry next. Thanks, Mr. Ambassador. That was wonderful. Yeah, comment. Oh, I have to unmute you, Sherry. Hold on just a second, dear. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
We got it.
Well, also, what we're talking about here, the super collider or hadron collider at CERN, it like pierces the veil, as we say. It distorts the space-time continuum. And the concerning thing about that is, what you get when you do that is you get what we call the groundhog effect. So if you have the groundhog effect, you can fold back time and you can then manipulate the past. So that's also a big, I would say, concern. And then the last comment that I'd like to make is, we talk about that it's in the Creator's hands. I feel that we are a part of the Creator. We also are God. We are a piece of God. So therefore, we don't just sort of sit back and go, I'm going to leave it up to the mad scientists, and to God. And I'm not suggesting that's what anyone here is saying. I'm just suggesting that I think out in the general populace, a lot of people think that way. They're not getting involved and being active like we are here on the GoldFish Report necessarily.
Sherry, you are absolutely spot on. You really are, because you're saying basically we are gods. And from a quantum physics point of view, we literally are, because our power of observation can bring things into reality. We create our very reality round about us. And on an emotional level, what we put out, we will get back as well. We can alter our frequencies, and that's not to take away from any creator. We're told that we're made in his image, so how naive of us to think that we couldn't create just like him. But with creation comes destruction as well, and I just fear for some of the people behind CERN, not the physicists there. I'm sure the thousands of physicists there are like me. They're absolute geek lovers. They're just absolutely thrilled to be on the frontier of physics. However, it's those few, again, that spoil the full picture.
Let me just share.
One thing I want to say, which is very important, is that what I want to say is that I am a person that has been always pushing for intervention. Okay, personal intervention of everyone. Okay, now the problem that I have with raising up an army to storm the CERN compound, okay, is that I'm ignorant to what they're doing. Okay. So, I don't want to basically go and say raise up. But what I want to say, okay, and this is a message to everyone that is listening, that for the ones that do know what they're doing, okay, and if it is not for our benefit, it will come a very harsh judgment. Very, very harsh judgment. And also I want the people that do know the knowledge and have the knowledge that they should actually come forward and expose it to us who can do something about it. And also by, this thing that we are, we're talking about creators, that we are creators and so on, and we created in the image of God. I think that we are, since we were eating the apple, basically we became like God, and we create God in our image, not the other way around. And I do believe that God is not in us. I think he's in everywhere. He's absolutely everywhere. He's the creator, basically, is everything that we are. So if we say that God is in everything, I think it's great. But because if I would say that I am God, you know, God would be quite limited. Okay, and I don't want to believe in a limited creator. I want to believe that He is all-knowing. And also, you know, even when you bless water, you see the water is changing form. So, by no doubts, if you have a right intention, and from your heart, and you pray, and you do meditation, and you do the right thing, we can change everything. But like I stated, the warning that people needs to take into consideration is to the people that is behind this thing. Because rest assured, if you are doing this with wrong intention, we will come after you. Okay?
That's a pretty strong warning there, Mr. Ambassador. I hope they're listening because, you know, we're here to help humanity, and they're basically our enemies. they're enemies to us and to the family.
But Luisa, this is the main thing, is that, you know, it's like I state, I don't know if they are my enemy. That's why I'm stating to them, if they are the enemy of humanity, if they are the enemy of a creator, then basically, yes, we'll come after you. But as long as we don't know, as long as I don't know who they are, what they're exactly trying to do, I don't want to put a judgment. But they know better than I do, so they should take that into consideration.
Okay, Sherry, did you want to finish your comments? I'm not sure if you were done there. Here, I'll unmute you. Wait. Let's. Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to share a very important image, what I think is a very important image from one of our Global Mission of Peace family members. And we have this, you know, we think as human beings that we're working our way up to the other dimensions, going up this way, which we've always gone. But she, for good reason and communication on the other side, understands clearly, or would like to share, that we actually as humans are going up this way. I hope you can see it, Steve. Move up closer. Anyway, as human beings, we are going up. We're about right here, and we're going to down a road that has never been crossed before. That all of these other beings in our universe are just enthralled and amazed by the humans and what we have, what the Creator has enabled us and allowed us to do. And we are on that path. We are creating that now. We are going to a place where we're going to apparently, supposedly, be able to stay in our bodies but be in other dimensions. That has never been done before. So I'm just saying that this is all related somehow.
No, I totally agree with you, Sherry, because I was listening to a lecture the other day with and it was a scientist and a yogi, and they were actually discussing time, space, dimensions, and he was speaking about a yogi master who basically, he went away, left him one day, came back 30 days later, and the guy was still sitting there meditating, and he was explaining how we have to separate our body from our spirit, and how we can exist on these other planes for vast amounts of time. It's just our bodies here that are limited. They age. So if we can separate ourselves from body and mind, on another plane we can be away for days at a time, and our physiological needs, they're irrelevant to us because we literally go quantum. And I can send you that actual short talk if you'd like to see that.
Thanks, Kev. I think that there was some updates that we wanted to get to regarding the Syrian crisis. I'm not sure if the ambassador is ready to go there, but I know that Steve actually and Kev had some updates about that. So whenever the ambassador is ready to go there, we can.
Yeah, very good. We should do that. And also I wanted just to state, I'm going to invite a person that I worked with for years, a part of the system, that actually hasn't been eating for years. And this is not like a story. He has not been eating for years, and he has evidence for that he's not been eating for years, and we have medical records and stuff like that. And I talked with him a few days ago, and I will invite him also to come on and talk. He is a part also of the behind the scene financial systems, and but I would like him to share to the world, how it is to live without water, without food for 4 years. Okay.
Doesn't it have to do with the energy of the food that actually is what we need, not necessarily the food itself? Is that what you're getting at there?
No, basically he should explain it, but supposedly he feeds on air, and that's basically what he's doing. And it was one day he waked up and realized that he doesn't want to eat anymore. He doesn't need to eat. And since that time, he has not been eating. And I have known him since this whole period of time, and so I know that it's for real. So actually, some people can live without food, and that's quite interesting. So I think it's all in our mind, and that's what we need to realize here, that the power is in our mind, and it's nothing that humanity can't do if we really set our mind to do it. Okay, so let's go into the Syrian crisis.
Okay, Steve, did you want to give us a little update, and then we'll go to Kev, because we were talking before we started the show today about this, and did you want to...
Sure.
Something had happened with the politician there in...
Well, there are a number of things going on. The situation is up. The politicians getting nervous about their positions because they're realizing the populations are getting scared. Because of the cultural lack of integration that will happen, and basically a flood is coming through the borders. So first of all, the countries that are taking the brunt of the flow of refugees through the Balkans, they're basically the refugees themselves are becoming disgruntled. Fires are being lit in the camps. There's a bit of chaos going there. The choking points are being cut off because the politicians, as I said, are getting nervous. Here in Germany, go back to the summit. There was a European summit last week. And basically what they wanted to do was they wanted to choke off the refugee crisis at the starting point, which is basically the Turkish border to Syria, the southern border. So they've done a deal with, or they're trying to do a deal with Turkey. And Erdogan, who is very right-wing and has used, Kevin and I were talking about this before, that he's taking the opportunity to bomb the country. He's basically supporting ISIS. There were videos released and things of him supporting ISIS as proof. There was rumors going around. So what he wants to be part of Europe, and he wants basically the borders to be open to the Turks of the whole Schengen system, which is open borders within Europe. Now, what he's also demanded is over 3.2 billion euros, and he's come this week with even more. He's had again for more money, and so he wants the European Union to scratch his back by opening the borders. Now, the big danger, which is not being really talked about in the papers openly, is that if that happens, if he accepts the deal from Europe to take the money and to take the Syrian refugees into his country, then that basically means if he gets his way, the borders are open anyway. So it's a paradox that will not come together somehow. And there are militants coming through. It's a big danger for Europe if it does cause chaos. And I'm going to show you some of the newspapers I've picked up today, just the headline, just get the idea of it. I don't know whether you can see them. You've got here, this is Die Zeit, which is basically it's a weekly newspaper here, a national newspaper in Germany. Basically, it's not your Boulevard Zeitung. It's not a trash site a newspaper. It's a serious intellectual journal, and it's basically, the title is Now It's Hate and Tomorrow, and basically there's 4 pictures there. This is the front cover. I haven't seen anything quite this sensationalist here yet, and it's got one of the Pegida, the right-wing protests here in Germany. They've got Merkel dressed as a Nazi, basically with the Euro symbol on her sleeve and the flag behind. The second from the right is a knife that was used to stab a local politician in Cologne, almost killed her. She won the election, but because of that. And there's some graffiti from Leipzig which says, Ob jung, wir kriegen dich, which means it doesn't matter how young you are, we're going to get you. And they've got a hangman's stand there as well, and they've got a hateful speech on the far left. So basically, there are some other papers there. You can see they've got sensationalist news, 20,000 storming our borders here in Austria. So basically, what I'm seeing here, and my interpretation is that they're preparing the European public, the German public in any case, for worse things to come. So whether it's being motivated from behind the scenes and orchestrated, I don't know, but it's deliberately being prepared. And maybe if I'm going too far here, I don't know, maybe they're preparing for martial law, maybe it's the start of the New World Order. I don't know. We just need to be aware of it. And as Kevin and I talked before, there is anger on the streets, the financial situation and everything, but the anger is being channeled internally towards the people themselves. We need to channel it towards the people that are behind it, the puppet masters, need to be taken into account.
Steve, what about the protest? How is the numbers on the protest? What are they? Are they because of this fire? They were torching the refugee camps, and so there's so much in sight. But what's happening with the protests?
Well, there's been a number of protests across Europe. I've been in France for different reasons. There were the austerity protests in Brussels. The numbers, of course, who knows the real numbers, but we're talking about sometimes tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have gone on the streets. Also in Austria, in other countries, I don't know all the figures, and I don't know all the protests because they're not all reported, or they're scantily reported. But so I can tell you that here in Dresden, exactly where I am, they've had this protest going on, this Pegida protest going on for a whole year now. Every Monday, it's been a standard thing. But of course, in the last weeks, it's picked up dramatically, and they've talked about numbers of, I don't know, 50,000 on the streets, and that's every Monday. They come in by train, and of course, it's been taken over by the right-wing Nazi movement to an extent. It's got, you've got middle-class families involved as well, but it's sort of this paradox of a democratic process of going on the streets is being taken over, of course, by the right as well. So it's increasing, and I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to have great problems already, but I certainly see signs of disgruntlement, and it could go in a very ugly direction.
I want to say that actually, as I see it, I'm gonna try to find you the article and give it to you also, Kev. This is done sometime in the beginning of year 2000, okay? And it's basically prophesizing all these things that we are talking about exactly into the smallest details, what's happening right now with the refugee crisis. And all this thing was organized and basically executed by this group. So basically, to force Turkey into the United Nations, as they like to do now, it is, it's on purpose, because then you have the 2.5 million refugees straight into the European Union. And then basically also you can borrow, and, it is a financial game. The bankers are making billions on this, because everyone that comes in, they can ask for different aids from the different international things, and they are borrowing against them. They're depositing their, birth certificates, the new ones, into the new banking systems, and basically, this is a huge, racketeering. At the same time, it is a payback for 2,000 years of tyranny. Okay, and so basically, this is a payback for, for what was done to them before. And now, I see a great potential to, because if you look at the situation with what's happening in the media today, it's the same thing that was done during the time of before the Kristallnacht and during Adolf Hitler time. And it seems to me that we are just repeating the story. We're just going to change the Jews this time from concentration camps into Muslims and other, brown people. But this is basically what we're seeing. And, it was interesting when you saw that young boy in Sweden that was dressing up like Darth Vader with this Nazi hat, and it was going, Harry Mack with a samurai sword, killing these people at the school. But if you look at the school, look at the students at the school. I mean, maybe 30% Swedish people maximum inside of the school. Rest are foreigners. So I mean, he targeted the school based on the fact that it was too many foreigners. It seems to me also that everyone that was killed by him, so far what I have seen, it was one Somali and some person that might be Middle Eastern, but. So it seems to me basically that we are seeing people being traumatized by the news, already feeling hate towards the immigrants. The immigrants are being populated into ghettos, and it creates a fear-based situation. And I believe that if we are not dealing with it in a proper civilized manner, we're actually going to have a huge, war on culture inside of Europe, and a new, racial type of divide here, and that's what we're going to see. And as I usually say, the ones with the guns has the power. So, we have to be careful.
It's true, Mr. Ambassador. And Scandinavia is definitely a hotspot for also not just Germany, but also for the refugee crisis as well. And I didn't mean to exclude that. But Kev, did you want to? I know that we were talking about this before we started. You had a lot of information on this too.
Yeah, it was just following on from what Steve had to say, really, before Sherry jumps in. And it was basically to say that we've got the EU. Now, this is all part of the New World Order. Obviously, they want regions around the world. Steve's living there. I'm in the UK. I think it's failing. It's a failed project. It really is. Whatever went wrong, we've got Britain now wanting out of it. Maybe, just maybe, they've decided, well, we need to rewrite this. Now, Steve rightly pointed that Turkey and Erdogan, he's playing both sides of the fence. Sorry. He basically is using the ISIS crisis, which he helped create, to go after his enemies, the Kurds. Now, for the past year, we've had the US-led coalition of the killing, as I call it, bombing the hell out of Syria. Now, we all know they haven't been bombing anybody on the ground, so what have they been doing? Basically, I feel, and it's just my thoughts, that they've been creating and fomenting this refugee crisis. They've wanted to flood the EU with these people. And at this time, when people are already angry because of austerity and everything else, people are actually starting to wake up. But people in the Tavistock Institute and all these big think tanks around Europe, they've known this is coming. And they've set up political parties, like Steve was saying, to gobble up the angry middle classes. Over here, we had something starting called Britain First. And to start with, it was really good. It was targeting the politicians and the companies that weren't paying tax. And then over time, I started seeing the anti-Islam stuff slipping in there. And now, because the media are telling us these refugees are coming, and at the same time, the story after that tells us that there's ISIS terrorists over in the Middle East determined to kill us, well, they're being steered in a certain direction. And places like Britain First, it is a fascist right-wing organisation. And fascism, unfortunately, is going to rise right now because people are angry, and it's the fascists and the right wing who are actually saying the kind of stuff that resonates with these people. But these groups are just as controlled as anyone else. And instead of us all looking and identifying the real enemy that sits in Brussels, Parliament and beyond, we all share those enemies. Well, we're being steered to look at one another, be it the Muslims, or in this country, we've had David Cameron just coming out and classifying people like me. Get this, guys, I don't know if you've seen this coming across, but Jihadi John, who has allegedly killed people and beheaded them in the Middle East, if he comes back to the UK, we're going to spend thousands re-educating him, giving him a house, and then integrating him back into UK society with UK values. But somebody like me, who speaks out against what is regarded as the democratic system in the UK and our British values, well, David Cameron says he's going to label me as a paedophile. I'll never be able to work again. I won't be able to work with children because I hold opinions that are potentially extremist. And I am the person that's radicalising people like Jihadi John. So known killers are going to come back to the UK and get school, and people that speak in the alternative media are going to be lumped in with the hate preachers and classified as paedophiles.
I think it says everything on what they're planning and the plan. Like I said, I'm gonna send you this press release from this person in the beginning of 2000 here, and basically this is what we're seeing happening now, right in our faces. This is also the biggest problem that I see, is that we are putting the focus, like you said, on the wrong people. We're putting the focus on the victims, and instead of looking at the people that is actually behind the aggression. And that's basically where we need to put the focus on, okay? And it is our failed, retarded pedophiles, that actually runs our nations, that are really guilty for both the crisis to start with and also with the crisis that they have now. So if we want to be angry about someone, it's them we should, put our anger on, and not, on the people. Okay. And the thing is, this way, if they would like to put people like yourself, Kev, classified as a pedophile, I mean, we know very well, you know, many of their backgrounds engaged in pedophilia, and you know, and that is you know, quite funny that they want to label truthers this when they themselves are the ones that have the most darkest secrets when it comes into this type of particular things.
And
Also, I want to
I've just shared a link there because I literally, you couldn't make this up, and that's one of the mainstream papers in the UK, and their headline reads, "Hate preachers to be treated like paedophiles." However, when you read into the comments and you take into account David Cameron's speech about people that hold 9/11 and 7/7 conspiracies about being non-violent extremists, then what he's saying is if you don't talk about the government narrative and support it, well, you're going to be lumped in with all of these guys.
And also, I wanted also to put, I received a notice today that actually that we're seeing actually the start of a new maybe uprising and in Ukraine once again. You understand? So it looks to me again that they are trying to do a new, you know, what's called a regime change or a new revolt there. So it seems to me that they're desperately doing whatever they can everywhere to create drama. And, you know, that's why I think that it's very important that we are keeping the focus on the ones that actually needs to be put focus on, like, you know, NATO, the, you know, North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, and other type of similar type of groups, you understand? And the Bilderbergers and everyone like that, because if they join this type of groups and we know what they have been doing in the past, I mean, they're the ones that needs to be rounded up and questioned, you understand? And, you know, and I don't understand, you know, why people, you know, allow the Merkels and the Dever Camerons and the other politicians here in Europe that are actually almost sorry excuses for human beings, why they even are allowed to continue, you understand, by the nation, the people are sitting and allowing them to continue as everything was normal, seeing the ship sinking. So I think this is very interesting, and I think that is something we need to put a lot of effort and attention to. You understand?
Right, and I think that's what we're trying to do here on the GoldFish Report, is wake people up and bring it to their attention. Sherry, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I mean, all these things that we're talking about, it's extremely important that we're aware and awake and we know what's going on. Now, the challenging balance is to stay in a high vibration, to keep ourselves in a high vibration, because what the people who are manipulating humanity, their goal is to divide and conquer. So all of these things that we're talking about and all of these situations that are happening on the planet and these crises, they are what I believe is manufactured, and their purpose is to divide us and keep us in chaos. Now, I think the only way that we can rise above that, and the ambassador had mentioned something the other day that is very symbolic, it's very important, and that is that these refugees, these immigrants, they're souls. They're not just, you know, refugees or immigrants or whatever labels you want to put on them. All of we, the people on the planet, you know, we're souls, and we have to support each other. We have to support humanity. And I just think it's very important for us to make it through this and not fall, you know, into the trap of their game, inciting a World War III or whatever else. Holding us back from our ascension is we have to keep our vibration high and regard our brothers and sisters as, you know, one of the of a soul, and to support each other.
And this is what I said earlier. I mean, in China, you have 65 million apartments empty, complete cities. You have in Africa complete cities emptied. Okay, so you know, all these ghost cities. Why don't we allow these refugees to stay there for a while? Why we need to reinvent the wheel? You understand? And so I think that is very, very important. Yeah, you know, and you have even, you know, Venice and Paris and all these different nice places. If they want to go live in Europe, they can live in Europe and China. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is that, and now maybe people are going to be angry to me in China and say why I want to send all the people there. But it's not about the people. is about actually we have to help souls. Doesn't matter what religion they come from, doesn't matter what race they are from, they're all humans, okay? And we need to actually help them where they are. And when you look at many of the photos of the bombardments of Syria and the cities, I mean, I wouldn't like to stay there myself either. You understand? So, I mean, many of them, they don't have anything anymore. But unfortunately, I think that most of these people probably are still in the refugee camps in Syria, outside Syria and Lebanon, and in Jordan and Turkey and other places. And most of the people that's coming here seems to be, people that actually has money to pay the men smugglers to bring them there. Okay. So I think this is very important to pay attention to. All these different things we talked about today is greatly important to put an effort in researching. I today, have learned a lot from Kev and everyone about CERN. I have not had the time to research it and study it, and I will do so. And we will put attention into it. And at the same time, it's so many things happening on the planet that we need to deal with simultaneously. And like I said, we have natural catastrophes. We have amazing storms coming into Mexico now. We have typhoons, Southeast Asia. We have sinkholes. We have volcanoes. We have earthquakes. We have, bombs. We have wars. We have all these different things that was prophesied supposed to happen. So what we need to do is that we need to be prepared to help each other. In this moment of time, it's time to us to come together as humanity and work together to help us all out. And it's important that sometimes we need to, know what's going on also at some time. I know that some people can lose their focus when they know. And also it's very important to understand, that I'm not in any way aggressing on any form of religion or standing side on any form of religion. I think that this is satanic. Okay, I believe that God has manifested himself to people all around the world and have revealed himself in many different ways. And we all are humans created by the same creator. And we maybe go to the same creator in different ways. Okay, but that doesn't make us better than anyone else. And I think that, what I want to put the focus to is that a lot of extremist fundamentalists, we talk about Christian, Muslim fundamentalists, and we have a huge problem with Christian fundamentalists and been having for 2,000 years. Okay, and it's no other religion on the planet that has caused so much drama as Christianity has on this planet. And in reality now, the wars that we have seen created has been manifested by our nations. And every time you see a madman from the Middle East doing something, he's classified as a terrorist. As soon as someone doing things here in the Western world, like this guy killing the people at the school, if he would be a Muslim, it would be classified as a terrorist activity. But since he was a Swedish guy and being a Nazi, suddenly he's a psychologically sick person. Who says that the Muslims doing the same thing is also not sick in the head? Of course they are. And so the situation is this way, that this is also a political modified violence, just like what it was in Norway. This is terrorism. And basically, we have been feeding terrorism, for centuries, and we have to stop this. We have to stop aggressing on each other. We have to turn back to the teachings of the Creator. If we are claiming to be Christian, we should follow what He's teaching. We are seeing Jesus preaching more about hell in the New Testament than He's doing about heaven. Okay, and that's because He needs to warn people not to create this hell on this planet. And so I think it's very important for us that we all here now unify. Doesn't matter what religion, what race we have, whatever. We unify as one human body and fight all this evil that we have on the planet as one single entity. And that's what I wanted to say. And I want to thank all the guests that we had today with us. And I see here that Sanji is popping up. Is this correct?
Yes.
So how is it in Sodom and Gomorrah?
Dubai is good.
And it's like I say, don't cry for Syria, cry for Dubai. Okay.
Yes, definitely cry for Dubai.
We have Kev, who I think has his hand up. Kev, did you want
It was just really quickly, and it was just to say thanks for inviting me on today and to tell you guys to keep doing what you're doing, but Before I go, I would love for all the audience that's listening to this, in the hours that builds up to what's going to be a devastating storm in Mexico, guys, we could maybe do with some of that meditation or prayer or whatever you want to call it out there, because we're looking at 200-mile-per-hour winds. And again, this goes back to what Sherry was saying. We're all humans, all one race. So even just by sending out, even it might seem so ridiculously silly, like even thinking about these people right now, but that in itself can have an effect. And me being Quantum Kev, it might have some quantum effect, who knows? But every little helps, and it'll cost you no money whatsoever to spare a thought for people like you and me who may well have a heck of a couple of days ahead of them. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Kev. And I know, Sanj, we were talking today about CERN, and I know that you weren't really privy to the conversation, but I know that you're always up to date on the current events, and if you had any comments that you wanted to make about CERN that, you know, I know you don't know exactly what we already talked about, but I know you're always well informed on these things. Is there anything you wanted to share about CERN that you know of? I mean, that you...
No, that's all good. You guys have done a good job, whatever. Just with the time zone, I just wanted to stop in and just say hi and hello.
Oh. All right, great. Thanks, Sanj. And,
I saw you, Sanji, outside the big Samsung building there. You know, the Burj Khalifa. You know.
Yes.
So how was it? How was it to see this Tower of Babylon going up?
Very, very amazing. You know, the old days they say your hat would fall off your head. Well, if I was wearing a hat, it would have fallen off.
Very good.
That's good.
Thank you very much, Sanji, and thank you everyone for coming on.
Well, this, we want to just, I think we had, we're really at over the hour mark here, and we don't really want to, you know, make this too laboring for our viewers. Did anybody have any quick comments that they wanted to make for closing? Otherwise, I have a few announcements to make. Does anybody have any comments? Just raise your hand. Yes, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I'd just like to say that we as humanity have a tendency to take technology and instead of using it for good, we weaponize it. And that has to change. So we have to stop accepting that alternative energies are suppressed. We have to stop accepting that every technology we have is turned into a weapon against us and against others. We just have to stop accepting it, and it won't happen. That's all I have to say.
Thanks,
Amen.
Steve. Thanks. And you know that I think that we all kind of collectively agree on this, and I don't think anybody disagrees. I think what we lack is the will to do something about it, and I know that that's what the Ambassador's mission is about. It's about changing the hearts of people. And so if you look inside yourself and ask yourself, what can you do? You probably already know the answer to that. You know, what can you do to help humanity, and what can you do to make a difference, because we can all collectively meditate, we can all collectively wish for peace, and I think that that's what we need to do. It's really that simple. I don't think there's any rocket science involved in this, and we don't need to be physicists, although I have great respect for physics. We just don't need to be physicists to understand that we have that power within ourselves to make changes. I also wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to announce that we are planning on having Randy Kramer join us on Monday, with all things being on schedule. That will happen. We will do follow-up questions with Randy from our first program that we had. So for anyone who's watching and you have questions for Randy, any follow-up questions, please feel free to visit us at www.thegoldfishreport.com. Go to the contact page and submit your questions for Randy, and we will do our best to answer them on the show on Monday, on the report on Monday. Also, you can follow us on Facebook. We do announce who our upcoming guests are going to be, and some of the reports, the research that we do. We do post some of that on the Facebook page as well, at the Goldfish Report on Facebook. And again, if you want to learn more about us, you can visit us at www.thegoldfishreport.com, which I already said, but you can go to our main page. Sorry, I lost it for a minute. You can go to our main page at globalmissionofpeace.com. And if you are interested in submitting a business plan or pitching a presentation to the ambassador, you can visit us at www.cbcglobaleducation.com, where you can register also for the symposium. You can join us, find out what we do, be part of our community, and learn more about how you can make a difference as well. And we want to thank all of our viewers for joining us today. And we want to give a special thanks to our guest, Kev Baker. We really appreciate Kev coming on and sharing with us the research that he presents, and is always a friend to us on the GoldFish Report. And with that, this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.